Daniel, welcome. You are our first interviewee to participate in the Comparte digital call.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation about that last night.
Yeah.
And tell us about why you're here and your own work and why you're in Berlin at the moment.
Okay. If I could do it quickly. I'm here in Berlin as a visiting scholar at the Max Planck Institute for the History of Science, and my project is co-evolutionary approaches to the technosphere, or to the Anthropocene, co-evolutionary approaches to the Anthropocene. And what we're trying to do is to understand how is what we understand about nature today allow us to revisit our past understandings of nature and human interactions. And so I guess one of the key senses is how can we understand, amplify our understanding of nature now that we confront nature on a kind of a global scale. What other sources of knowledge outside of the one which brought us to the Anthropocene are out there, and what do they have to offer now to our understanding of our current condition?
Thank you for participating with us.
It's my honor.
What you felt about reading this text?
I think that the most important thing is the question that the EZLN, that the Zapatistas ask. Now, 20 or so years ago, they burst onto the international scene, and the use of the internet, the use of the EZLN websites, of the of a number of platforms were essential to them getting their message out to the world, but also as a strategic move to collect the interest of the world as a defense from the suppression of the state and their exclusion from the national media. And so in that sense, the Zapatistas were one of the first groups in the world to understand the potential of the internet, of the new platforms. And I think that they were brilliant in the use of that. 20 years or so later, that they ask now the question of, can we still use this platform in the same way? It's a very powerful question. It's a very important question, and I think that it's a question that we need to really to grapple with, to try to understand. So I think maybe others in this group here have different ideas and certainly more expertise in technology than I have. But from my perspective, I think now what the Zapatistas ask us is, does the internet allow us to communicate our mode of being, the world of technology in which we live, can support the not just the interests, but really the material and ecological and cultural being that that is theirs on somehow a global stage. And that is a question which I think we don't really know the answer to, but it's, in my view, an essential question.
Is this realm of the technological communications pulling us into an environment that is not really helping us with, let's say, our environmental crises, or how we will create sustainability in our communities? So the revisit moment is really good now, and coming from indigenous culture as well, to ask how has this already affected their communities.
I do believe that others have a different view here, and that will be interesting to explore as well. But it does seem that we've come to a moment in the tech world in which a few very powerful interests have been able to claim domain over that. And we as individuals have no choice but essentially to subject ourselves, to essentially render ourselves up as pieces of data that formulated and reformulated according to the interests of those corporate and capitalist powers. And that's why the Zapatista is asking from a communal base, from the idea of the cultural survival of a people through time. Are there still available spaces in this technological infrastructure by which we can survive, and by which our survival can be supported in the way that it was in the old days, in the initial days? That's I still think of as being the key question. This gets into the way in which different technological logics might or might not be able to align. Is it possible that the technological logic, because the Zapatistas, for example, have their own technologies that are tuned to their own mode of existence, and those are of many different kinds. So are those types of technologies, can they somehow find a connection point with our technological, our digital technological, technospheric world that that is not fundamentally unequal? Is there some space in our technological high-tech world that's still open and still can fundamentally other technologies? That's the question that I think that they ask.
Just to follow up on where we were going with this sort of the power of the technology at the moment is with this the way the corporate powers are dominating this internet space. For example, I read a statistic of 90% of the traffic is pretty much the top 5 companies, the GAFAM as it's called. Because in the text from the Zapatistas, they're saying, is this a co-opted space that is no longer a liberatory space?
Right.
And do we need to think of another possible internet, for example?
I don't think we can keep going the way that we're going now. I think that what we're seeing is that the internet is becoming a field for distraction, a medium for distraction, so that people are glued to their devices and ignorant of the world around them, except for through these very specific channels, and that I don't think will work to solve to address even the type of problems that we face on societal, at individual, at social, at societal, and at global scales. So I don't think that in the present form, or at least in the present structure, that the internet offers us obvious avenues. But, and this is based in part on conversation with people here, the internet is a vast thing, and there's a great potential within it. And so I think that part of our challenge is to now make a very kind of sober assessment of where that potential lies. Can we find in this next generation, whatever it is, of technological communications, a way of strengthening the type of core modes modes of experience and modes of existence that we want to share and that we think are capable of addressing the type of social and ecological challenges that we face today. That's the thing that I think that the technological community, the tech community, as much as the people who are, interested in ethnography and interested in environment, have got to somehow, crash together and begin to think out. So in that sense, I think that the Zapatistas ask really what is just a fundamental question.
This particular interview, we're going to be a little bit more playful with the identity, and we have two guests here from Belarus, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, we're the group EFFF, working at the intersection of technology, economics, and psychology.
Yeah, my name is EEE.
My name is FFF.
Super. So, what I wanted to start with this, since we decided to do this interview with masks on, is talking about the state of digital culture. I wanted to ask you if, in a place like Belarus, did the Snowden revelations drastically change your opinions at the time, or was it something that you were already concerned about in terms of how the net was being used by the state?
I think now we are all people who are living in Belarus or in Russia, because I spent 5 years in Moscow. Yeah, we are now the objects of the politics of the government, the Belarusian and Russian too. They are trying to establish sovereignty over the internet, over the digital space, and all these processes are more saturated after Snowden issues. Yeah. And this the being of anonymous in the internet now is more dangerous and more complicated than 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's like the question of whether if you choose to be anonymous, it's in a way like draws attention to you. So maybe the tactics could be otherwise, for example, to spam and to use another kind of strategy in order to also to overcome dangers of your own from the position. Like you always need to look at yourself from the position of the government, if they will find it for themselves dangerous or not. And yeah, also I think the situation has changed in a way that platforms that are developing right now, like neoliberal, they are trying to be more independent from the government in order not to like repeat this memory, this history. Yeah, what do you think?
I think to defend their own users, yeah, a kind of citizens of these platforms. Yeah. And you could see that in Russia with the big companies like Yandex or Google or Facebook, and you could see this with relations between Wikipedia and Russian government, and your idea about spamming is a good thing, because last years you could see how dramatically the public sphere in the internet is disappearing. Yeah, and all that we have is only private conversations, not the public ones, because the surveillance of the government is everywhere, and if you post something publicly, you could be put in the jail. Yeah, if it's not in mainstream politics of the government.
Yeah, or even share.
Even share, yeah, or even like. Yeah, but it's not so funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny at all. Yeah, and it's connected with this a kind of a stupidity of the government. And the last issue with mathematician who was put in jail a couple of years ago because he served Tor note from which was published something against the Russian government, and nobody cares about that how Tor is working. It's only about the structures like in KGB knows. Yeah, this is the IP address, but not about the Tor technology. It's only about the level which is understood by the government and the police in Russia.
Are you optimistic about what's happening with the digital culture and your work in dealing with the difficulties and the tasks that we have to try to find liberating space?
So I would maybe say that we're trying to find the ways how machines can be against machines. So basically what we're trying to do is to put the automation thing against the same processes of automation, but in the way that we are interested in. Just to give you a brief example from another culture, it could be said that like there was a guy from London who is a lawyer, who made for his community a tool that was helping to retool
the process of getting fines from improper parked cars in London. Yeah,
because the process of parking was automated by the government, but it was somehow they were getting money out of people because legally everything was correct. So, and he as a lawyer could make the tool that allows you in 30 seconds to chat with the bot and then basically to return your money to yourself. So I think that we can appropriate technology that we have right now, not to refuse it, but to try to get another way of dealing with that. Basically, what we need to do is to retool the tools.
Yeah, to find some shortcuts. Yeah, how to reflow the information. Yeah, in some bottleneck on other side. And if some corporations could collect big data about us, the aim is to find the bottleneck in this process. Yeah, to hack that in a way which could be useful for our communities. But this is the question about new ways of education and new ways how to involve people skilled in different fields of knowledge.
Yeah. So in our practice, we don't want to refuse, but try to recombine the elements that we have right now and to use them for our own purposes. Yeah, basically to appropriate the technology that we have right now.
Super, thank you.